Kia ora and welcome to Comfort.ai, making artificial intelligence your comfort zone. In this session of Ethics Talks, I'm very excited to be with Mahsa Mohaghegh, one of my very good friends and one of the most accomplished women in AI that I know of, and I'm really looking forward to the interview today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Saba, for having me here, for your kind introduction.
Thank you. Awesome. So let's start with the basics. Tell us about yourself and what you do.
Sure. So you introduced me. My name is Mahsa Mohaghegh, or known as Mahsa Mohaghegh as well. So I'm a Director of Women in Technology here at the Auckland University of Technology, AUT, also Senior Lecturer in the School of Engineering, Computer and Mathematical Sciences, Director and Founder of She Sharp, which is a charitable trust empowering women in tech.
How do you get time to do all of that? I know you're a mom as well, so we'll definitely get to that. So, Mahsa, you do a lot of work with AI. Tell us what your definition of artificial intelligence is.
Sure. So I usually try to explain AI to my little 4 years old. So this is where I usually start explaining AI, and I imagine that it is really important to bring some of those complex terms or buzzword to the level that everyone can really understand. And I really want to start by defining intelligence. And I usually ask everyone, who do you call an intelligent person? And let me ask you, Saba, so who is an intelligent?
Oh, that is a very difficult question to answer, especially since I know there's no unified definition of intelligence. But I think normally it's people who can recognize patterns really well.
Think about the 4 years old. So if I ask my little girl, that who is an intelligent person? Who is an intelligent person to her eye?
Ooh, someone who learns things quickly, someone who knows everything.
Yes, someone who knows everything, and usually in their eyes, the parents, so mom and dad, teachers, they are intelligent. And the reason for that, because they manage to solve a problem. They manage to, know about something that they struggle. So really, intelligence is all about problem solving. Learning over time, making decision, and applying that knowledge in a different area. So artificial intelligence is really getting machine to learn over time, solve problem, and make decision without human intervention.
That is a very, very good definition. Thank you. Next time I see a 4-year-old now, I know what to say. Great. So with that in mind, tell us where AI fits within your scope of work. What do you do with AI?
Sure. So I did my PhD a couple of years ago, but around 10 years ago, in artificial intelligence, but specifically natural language processing. So my project at that time, and that was my really very first exposure to AI, was trying to get the machine to translate real time from English to Persian, and that was machine translation. So that was my project. I really wanted to make an application for everyone, and we are talking about that was 2008. Making an application, an app on a phone that people from different languages, in my case was Persian people, would be able to interact with the device, getting translation real time. So, but there was a lot of work trying to have a speech to text, machine translation, text to speech. So it wasn't a project for 3 years. So I focused in the middle part, which was really machine translation. And that was my area of work. But since then, at university, so I'm teaching different aspects of AI and also I'm supervising PhD master's students with the different topics around AI. But these days, the majority of them, they're around AI in education, which is a topic very close to my heart.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Okay, that is a very great question that pops into my mind that we are going to ask shortly. But before we get to that, can you tell us more about the role that you think ethics plays and with regards to the part of the AI that you deal with?
I think definitely ethics in AI and in education, it is a fundamental thing. So it's a very first step. But not only that, as someone who is working in academia, I believe that is the very, very first papers and one of the very, very course that we have to teach our next generation of students, AI expert here, because we are dealing with the generation that they are tech savvy. So they brought up with technology, but getting this power in a hand of the right person with the right mindset and ethic in mind, this is a must. So, and it is really important that we start teaching it from early on, I'm saying that we have to have ethics around using, technology, specifically AI, from the secondary school, in high school, and we have to have it as definitely a core paper here at university.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Yeah. That's interesting. I have always thought about having it in, definitely at university when they first start learning. But now you're saying that take that even a step further back, like at school and at kindergarten.
So at schools right now, I had a group of a student a couple of years ago that they had the opportunity to create an Internet of Things project at primary school level. So we do have kids at the moment, they're using technology, but knowing how to use this technology for social good, to helping tackling a problem which is relevant, to humans or, environment, this is a key, because this is a power in the hand of the right people. And we have to make sure that they got the fundamentals right before, having, because as you know, that there are a lot of, stories behind AI, all those, doom and glooms behind AI. But this is the time that we have it power in the hand of people that they don't know how to use it, because AI is one of those areas of technologies that there are very mixed conversation and very mixed attention around it. Some people for it, some people against it. Some of the top people, like Bill Gates to start with, so they were talking about the risk of AI, but now they believe the benefits far outweigh the risks. And someone like Sundar Pichai, so CEO of Google, he believes that AI, it is like a fire and water and electricity. So having such a bold comment, so it shows the power of AI in our life today and in the future.
That's a very good point. So I want to touch on education on its own. Tell us a little bit about the role that ethics plays in education, with or without AI.
So the very first question is that ethical to just remove the role of human teachers from a classroom. So I often get this question, would it be possible for us to see a day that our kids going to school and they're just sitting and working with the AI teacher? What do you feel about that, Sabah?
I'm not a mom. I see pros and cons. I see the fact that technology can personalize education, and therefore if people like their kids with different learning abilities, then a kind of like a robot or a machine interaction can personalize it for that person, as opposed to one teacher that has to manage like a whole classroom with different people. The bit that I don't like about it is removing that human element, that human interaction, because kids, we're already seeing the impact on kids, moving away from playing with each other in the streets to now playing with their devices, and you can already see that, but the only place that they get to go and have that social interaction, and not the only place, but one of the most fundamental places, is that classroom and that human element. So I'm not sure really how I feel about removing it completely.
No, I'm with you. And I wasn't really sure about this topic. And now being a mom and having that little one that she's going to start with school in a couple of months' time. So that was really something that, kept me awake in the middle of the night to thinking, what would be the future of education for our next generation? I did a lot of research around it, and what I really find at the moment, so we are thankful, we are really far from the time to be able to see that robots or AI teachers or digital human to replace our teachers in the classroom, because of so many of the reasons that you touched on it right now, as well as there are some elements that you never ever would be able to teach to the kids or any human being without having that interpersonal relationship. And some of the very important one coming to my mind, and research proved that, was empathy. So you can really teach empathy, and our teachers at the moment, they're not only teaching, embarking knowledge to our next generation. They're teaching wisdom, and wisdom is coming through experience. And the other important thing is, I don't really know any machine that they can inspire our next generation. So our kids, they really need someone to look at and they, aspire to be. And I think the other thing which is really important, that us as a human, we relate better with other humans.
Yes.
And we really like to learn from someone who is capable of making mistakes. But AI system, they design to, bridge that gap of, imperfection. So they design to be perfect. And I think this makes it a little bit more, not really tangible for us to want to learn from someone or something that knows everything.
Yeah.
So they designed to not making any mistakes, but we can have a mistakes. Your teacher is willing to share about the failure stories, and we usually learn a lot from that. So empathy, the other one is critical thinking, and the other one, which is a lot of debate around it, is creativity. So I'm just believing that a human teacher would be able to really encourage and motivate kids when they come up with something creative, to actually help them to thrive this creativity.
Yeah.
Machine can exhibit and show creativity, but they won't be able to teach that. They won't be able to teach critical thinking, and for sure not empathy yet.
Yeah. Those are some really good points. I'd never thought about looking at my teacher and being like, that person can actually make a mistake, therefore they're not perfect, therefore I can learn from their mistakes. But you're right, machines cannot give that to us. That's really good. So you touched on the fact that you have a 4-year-old. Tell us, as a parent, where does that whole ethics, what's the role of ethics in parenthood, and what kind of future do you want to see for your child?
I think the future of my child and all the kids here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, is bright. And the reason for that, because hopefully in this country we will be able to start, introducing the different aspects of artificial intelligence properly in the school, by having a robust national AI strategy that makes sure that the tools that we put in the hands of our next generation, it is really to help them to thrive by giving them some customized, tailored, curriculum that can only help them to get better in what they are good at. So something like one of the projects we're working at the moment is designing an AI companion that can stay with the students throughout their high school or middle school, and then when get to the university, rather than a career advisor today that come up with a suggestion. So we'll be able, by assessing that, what are your interests, what are the, how much time you're spending on a specific, topic, your grades, what will be the best career pathway for you. So I really love to see that, and I'm just thinking, by getting the ethics right and being able to trial some applications of AI in our education, the future is really bright for our next generation.
That is a really good point. And I think it kind of is a good segue to my next question and the next thing that you do, which is you're a founder of She Sharp. So can you tell us a little bit about She Sharp, and then I'll jump into a couple of my other questions.
So She Sharp, as I mentioned, it is a charitable trust, a networking platform to bring professionals from industry, high school students, and university students together. And the purpose for that was trying to bridge the gap that at the moment it is existing between all these 3 different groups. I was part of minority, and I'm sure you experienced the same thing. And when I started, study computer engineering here in New Zealand, 2008, I was the only girl, doing PhD in computer engineering. And when I started lecturing in this field, I noticed a similar issue is still around. So the purpose was really bringing them together, trying to give them opportunity to try technology, and then they decide for their future. So give them opportunity to make an informed decision for their future. And hopefully through that, we can fill the gap of, the gender balance in the tech field. As we know at the moment, it is really in New Zealand, it is around 24% of the ICT sector, they're females. And in AI, do you know the number?
No.
Globally, only 22% women working in AI in the whole world.
22%. Oh, yeah. Wow.
That is global. That's a global number, and that was a number by AI Economic from 2020, which is really shocking. So we have a long way to go. Yeah. And the purpose of She Sharp is to hopefully trying to find with, gender imbalance and trying to bring that equity to the tech field just by one person at a time.
Yeah.
If each of us do our own part as individual.
Yeah, that is such a great goal. So that takes me to my next question. So we talked about this kind of AI companion that stays with the student, kind of takes them through to university, which is great, which is kind of to my earlier point about customizing education. But we want to make sure that that is not biased towards only certain topics or certain characters to lead only certain type of people towards technology and derail the other ones. So tell us about the role that you think diversity plays in developing AI and algorithms.
So diversity, so the core for artificial intelligence, the approach to achieving artificial intelligence is really machine learning. And in machine learning, it's to just, want to give you after all, I'm a lecturer, so I started by, definition. So machine learning at the moment, it is, you're training a system based on some known existing data and then feeding a system with some unknown and getting a result based on the model that you train. So it is whatever you put into the system, you're going to get it out. So in other words, so garbage in, garbage out. This is so important and crucial that the very first data that we're feeding a system to be free from bias, but making sure that we have that, unbiased data to start with, it's really hard. And there are so many different algorithms that they try to minimize the bias at the very stage of training, and a lot of testing at the end to actually prove that your system is as inclusive as possible. But in order to get that right, the very first step is having a diverse team of people in the very first place. So, and these diversities are not only gender diversity, so we're talking about ethics, age, you name it. So everything, it is really important to be right at the first place, because you have this broader group of people that they are potentially going to be the user of your product, so they get to test it. So getting a diversity right at this stage, I think it's really important. And the fact that we all have only 22% of our women in this field, I think it is really worrying, because 50% of population at the moment, women, they're using this device and AI applications on a daily basis.
That's a good point in terms of why it's important to have that gender balance, because we have got 50% of the user base which are women, but only 22% that are actually developing. That's a really great point. So with these interviews, as you know, we can go on and on forever.
We can.
So I'm going to jump into a couple of my last questions in terms of, are there any projects out in the industry, around the world anywhere, that concern you, AI projects?
Nothing coming to top of my head at the moment to concern me, but I think any of these projects with the potential of not having a human being as the center of the development, that they have a tendency to be wrong and not designed for the right people.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So I just remember that 2 years ago I was lecturing at a university in China, so I had a live dashboard that I could see real time about my students feeling, that who is tired, who needs to get out of the class, and none of them was actually with the consent of a student. Although it was a really good device, students, they were sitting in a class 24/7. They've been, their video been capturing, and I would get the real time feedback, which really helped me to change the way I'm teaching, to be engaged with them. But I think they are part of these applications, so the consent, the ethics behind it, it's really crucial.
Also, so they didn't know that
they knew that the camera is there, but nobody asked them if they want to actually being recorded, or providing this information to the lecturer all the time. So how much you have to put on a show to sit in a class to be able to provide a good impression. Even some really good applications out there, they might have a very wrong intention.
Okay, that's a really good point. So removing the human element and also using people's data without their consent, that is a really good point. Are there any questions that you wanted me to ask you that I didn't ask? It's my favorite question.
Nothing coming to my mind, Saba. I think it was a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much for your work in that space. There's definitely a lot of work we need to do in space of AI and ethics and gender diversity, as well as inclusion within the tech, and you're doing great. So thank you so much, and keep up your good job.
Thank you, and you too as well. It's people like you that inspire me, really. Thank you so much for listening, and please let me know if you have any questions for myself or for Mahsa. And until the next session, remember, technology can be fun, fashionable, and fabulous.